We are 32 games into the 2023 MLB season, and it is time to address a topic that no Tigers fan wants to address. But it is, what is the true future of Jonathan Schoop, and why is he still on the roster? Jonathan Schoop is in his fourth season with Detroit, first signing in 2020 for the COVID-shortened season, where he posted a .278 batting average, averaging barely over 20 at-bats per home run he hit. He was quite efficient, leading the Tigers to a pretty solid start to that shortened season, kind of waned toward the end, but signed another one-year extension to come back to Detroit for the 2021 season with much anticipation around his return. And 2021 for Jonathan Schoop was just as good, if not possibly better. The now second-year player in Detroit averaged .278 again, posting a total of 22 home runs in the full season, including an incredible month of June where he crushed 12 home runs in a 30-day month. There was no doubt that Jonathan Schoop was the anchor to this team, and coming up in 2022, the Tigers were expected to call up exciting young prospects, infielder Spencer Torkelson and outfielder Riley Green. So, if anything, Schoop was going to get more help in the 2022 season. But the 2022 campaign for the third-year Tiger Jonathan Schoop was a disaster. He averaged 1 home run per 43 at-bats, putting up only a .202 batting average. Now, in order to be an effective MLB player, one does not have to have a high amount of home runs and a high batting average. It really just needs to be one or the other. We can look at one end of the spectrum where somebody like Adam Dunn for the White Sox a decade ago really was barely batting over the Mendoza line, but he was hitting 40-plus home runs in a season, still earning him a pretty respectable MLB career. And then we can look the other way at a player kind of like Ichiro, who would consistently hit for a very high average, but only had a total of 3 seasons where he hit over 10 home runs. So in order for Jonathan Schoop to be a valuable player to the Detroit Tigers roster, he would have to carry out one or the other. As we saw in 2020, he hit for .278 batting average and had 8 home runs, which does not sound like a lot, but for a COVID-shortened season, it actually was quite significant. In 2021, he again hit for .278 and put up 22 home runs. Pretty decent in both of those categories. But in 2022, Schoop only put up 11 home runs in a full 162-game season and only posted a batting average of .202. So, pretty ineffective at both, and for a player who at the time is 30 years old, you could see him on the way out without a bounce-back campaign. 2023 is 32 games in, and Jonathan Schoop is yet to hit a home run in his 58 at-bats. And he is only batting .204. He is still consistently making the Detroit Tigers lineups day in and day out, and the question has to be asked, why is Jonathan Schoop still playing? Jonathan Schoop has a total of 14 strikeouts so far on the year. That is 26% of his at-bats. So, when Jonathan steps up to the plate, a quarter of the time, he will strike out. Player averages about 4 at-bats per game that they play. Jonathan Schoop is averaging to strike out at least 1 time per every day he is in the lineup. Jonathan Schoop is in his 30s and has been in his 30s and will never go back to where he was in his 20s. His one All-Star season is well behind us. Jonathan Schoop will only get worse. He will not get better. And the trend has only shown that in his years in Detroit. Jonathan Schoop being on the team is a liability, and him being in the daily lineup takes up time from putting in anybody else who could improve, who could actually get better, somebody in their 20s, whereas Jonathan Schoop in his 30s is only going to get worse. And that's all I've got for today, so like, subscribe, and comment what terrible old Tiger needs to go next.